So, Fionna and Cake Season 2 wrapped up a while ago now, and I genuinely can't stop thinking about it. Like, we got answers to a lot of things, sort of, but the show also just left so much sitting there, and some of it is obviously intentional, and some of it we might not ever get resolved, and that combination is kind of driving me crazy. So today we're gonna go through every unsolved mystery in Fionna and Cake before Season 3, starting with the biggest mystery of them all. The Jake death question has been haunting this fandom for years, and honestly, the evidence was never really pointing toward peaceful old age even before Fionna and Cake. Like the tattoo in Obsidian, the croak dream, and the way Together Again frames Finn's grief as something way too heavy for a natural goodbye. The pieces were always suggesting something worse, we just didn't have confirmation. And then Season 2, Episode 9 gives us the closest thing to confirmation the show will probably ever give, unless we get a very direct answer. The undergrowth stores unprocessed pain, specifically the stuff you refused to deal with. And Finn's tree has a lot of them, but it has this one main orb that's just so disproportionately massive compared to everything else on it, and when Fionna touches it, we get a flash of Finn in absolute horror screaming.
You don't want to see that one. Trust me.
Now that's definitely a thread worth pulling on. Prismo's scene in Fionna and Cake Season 1 shows Finn and Jake on what we think might be their last adventure together, fighting the King Cockatrice. Here we see an adult Finn who already has the Jake tattoo on his chest, meaning that he got it while Jake was still alive. So the leading theory at this point is that Jake died suddenly on an adventure in a way that Finn either watched happened or arrived too late to stop, and that the horror in that flash is the specific horror of watching someone you thought was invincible get taken down in a fight that they were supposed to win. Adam Muto has said that he'll never give a concrete answer because doing so would rob people of something. I think he's right that whatever our version of Jake's death is in our heads, it's probably doing more emotional work than any specific answer would. But if Season 3 happens and the show is looking for an emotional backbone the way Season 1 had Simon and Betty, Finn finally opening that orb and somewhat processing his grief could be exactly that. And while all of that is going on in Finn's subconscious, there's a whole separate situation playing out in the background of Season 2 that I think got really undersold. The thing about Scarab's arc this season is that the escape in Episode 8 is actually the least interesting part of it. Yeah, he gets his material body back and his crystal back, and then he slips through a portal first chance he gets during the whole Cosmic Court Chaos thing, while everyone's being distracted by the Cosmic Owl coming back to life. But then in the epilogue of Episode 10, he's just back in the time room in his non-material form, comforting Prismo? Who supposedly still thinks that the Cosmic Owl is still dead? So did Orbo handle it off-screen at some point? Does the Scarab go back willingly? Did the escape amount to basically nothing in terms of plot consequences? Why didn't the Scarab tell Prismo about the Cosmic Owl being resurrected? We don't know, but maybe this has to do with Prismo's powers not activating anymore. And that's also what I keep coming back to, it's that Prismo has been actively hiding his inability to grant wishes from Scarab this entire season. At one point he literally invented a fake errand just to get him out of the room.
It feels like the time core is a couple milliseconds out of sync. Could you check on it?
Yes, mighty Prismo.
So he's completely in the dark about the fact that the position he spent all of Season 1 trying to claim is already broken. And at some point, Scarab is going to find out. The question of what he does with that is much harder to answer now than it would have been in Season 1, because of the changes in this dynamic that we've seen between him and Prismo throughout this entire season. So when Scarab does eventually figure it out, does that make him protective of Prismo and stop him from getting consequences from that? Or does it reignite everything from Season 1 and spark his desire to take over his position? It's honestly one of the things I'm most curious about if we ever get to Season 3. But if that's not good enough, the post-credits scene did give us an even better reason for the next season that we absolutely didn't see coming. Even though it's short, the post-credits scene is so loaded with lore because here we have Hunson Abadeer walking up to Marshall Lee on a street corner in Fiona's world with zero explanation, and then the season ends there.
Thank you.
Nice song, kiddo.
Got a minute?
Some fans have pointed out what looks like a summoning symbol on a wall in the background of that scene, which, if true, means that someone in Fiona's world deliberately brought him here, and we have absolutely no idea who or why. As to why Hunson is even in Fionna world, the theory I think is most valid is that Hunson needs an heir. He couldn't get Marceline to take it on, and he sees in Marshall everything he was always looking for, the opposite, but the same. Marshall is almost certainly going to say no, seeing everything that Season 2 built for him, so the more interesting possibility fans have floated is that Hannah herself ends up as the heir somehow, which honestly could be a more interesting outcome than anything involving Marshall reluctantly accepting. And given that we still don't know nearly enough about Hannah or her relationship to the Nightosphere, it's not something we can rule out yet. And Hannah's situation seems really complicated too, because from what we know so far, Hunson is essentially a singular multiversal entity. He doesn't have true counterparts across universes the way that other characters do, which makes his relationship with Marceline especially strange. But Prismo created Hannah Abadeer as her own separate being when he built Fionna World. So is she really the gender-bent version of Hunson, or is she her own individual person who shares the name and actually can spread across dimensions like he can? So whether she even has her own separate Nightosphere to rule, or has the right to rule his Nightosphere, is something the show hasn't confirmed. Is Hunson really not actually a multiversal entity, as many believe, and does the Nightosphere not go across dimensions and is kind of separate? The idea of the original singular Hunson showing up in a universe that already has its own Abadeer in it raises a lot of questions that I hope get answered next season. And speaking of absent parents showing up at the worst possible time, there's actually a whole thread about Fiona's parents that the show hasn't delved into yet. For 2 full seasons across 19 episodes, Fiona's family situation is just never brought up. We don't see her parents anywhere in the show, but this show is deliberate enough that it was always pretty clear this was set up, and episode 9 is where it finally nudges us towards what it's been building. One of Fiona's pain orbs in the undergrowth shows her as a child at an animal shelter playing with cats, while 2 people nearby call her a stray and say she's a regular visitor.
Who's the kid?
I don't know. She doesn't really talk to anyone but the cats. Boss doesn't mind. Says a stray is a stray.
Oh, that's sad.
Now, the absence of her parents being an active unprocessed wound rather than just an unexplored detail changes how we read the whole show in retrospect. Here is where the theories get interesting. Fiona's last name is Campbell, and Minerva Campbell is Finn's mother's name. So, in this gender-bent universe, the parents' roles could have swapped, meaning that Fiona's father could be the Minerva equivalent and her mother the Martin equivalent. So maybe the show could swap the deadbeat parent roles as well. Martin was Finn's deadbeat absent father, the guy who kept leaving, and in Fiona's version of that story, the deadbeat could be her mother. There's also the question of if Fiona will lose her arm like Finn did. Earlier in the same episode, we watched Fiona see Finn lose his arm trying to stop Martin from leaving, and that parental abandonment was the direct cause of the physical loss. So it's not exactly mirrored, but maybe we'll see something similar. The show has been deliberate about drawing these parallels, so it's harder to imagine the arm thing happening with Fiona without her parents being the trigger for it. And I hope she doesn't lose her arm, but something may involve her arm. So that is a Season 3 thread that basically feels inevitable if the show comes back, but the next one is something a lot of people didn't even catch, and it's kind of been driving me crazy. So right at the end of the finale, when the camera pulls all the way out to show Fionna World from space, there's this faint blue moving star in the background just kind of approaching the planet, and it's barely on screen for a second before the episode ends. And I think this looks eerily close to a catalyst comet, which, if true, is probably heading straight for Fionna World, and their entire world is in danger. The implications are kind of enormous because catalyst comets are agents of change. From all that we know, they carry reincarnated souls and fundamentally transform whatever they touch into a new age. The green one brought the Lich into existence, and the blue one was Finn's soul in a previous life, and the purple one, well, it took Martin.
Goodbye, son!
Bye, Dad.
The color coding has also always mattered because each comet matches the soul that it carries and the type of change that it is, and the comet approaching Fiona's world here is blue. And given that Fionna is Finn's mirror in every other way, I really don't think that's a coincidence, but she's here, so that blue comet can't exactly be her, can it? The interesting part of this theory is what a comet arriving would actually mean for Fionna specifically, because when Finn encountered the purple comet, the offer on the table was transcendence, and Finn said no. So Is this comet going to have that kind of intelligence, or offer anything to Fionna, or change her life and maybe allow her to ascend? But Fionna has just broken out of the only world she's ever known, with basically no idea what she is cosmically. She's just escaped into the grasslands with a mountain. She thought her whole world was that city, so she basically doesn't have Finn's decades of identity and knowledge of the world around her as her identity, so whether she could even make the same choice feels genuinely open, but I think that this blue comet represents something different. Let us know down below what you think. Then there's also the genuine question of what a comet hitting a world or a planet or a universe that Prismo has built does to it, because every previous comet hit predestined realities, but Fionna's world is brand new, and honestly, we don't even know what shape it's in, or what the rest of the planet looks like, or what it even is, or what its future would look like, which is exactly why we're still thinking about that 2-second background shot of that blue light coming in. Let's move on to someone who has also been operating quietly in the background this whole time, but for very different reasons. So, the Spirit Dream Warrior has been this background presence throughout both seasons, and the show keeps returning to him without ever explaining, and the more we think about him, the stranger his whole situation gets. What we do know is that he guided Huntress Wizard as this sort of mentor and parental figure, but Season 2, Episode 8 reveals he's also the reason the Order of the Green Mages exists at all. He's the one who led the original Green Sorcerers to the heart of the forest back when they were just untalented bandits, basically handing them their entire power base, and by the way, that power base was built on enslaving the heart of the forest, so the relationship between them could be a lot more complicated than just mentor and students. Then, the epilogue shows him following Astrid, seemingly selecting her as his next project.
The straight line teaches the curve to bend.
Now, here's where we start guessing, and these are genuinely just guesses, but still, the thing with SDW is that his advice is always sort of cryptic, but always correct. So the theory that makes the most sense to me is that he's some sort of fate architect, aware of how things need to unfold and quietly steering people toward specific outcomes without ever being loud enough about it to attract cosmic attention. And that last part might actually be the most interesting piece, because no cosmic entity in this show ever mentions him or claims jurisdiction over him. We don't know who he is or where he comes from, and for a franchise this deliberate about its characters and hierarchies, that feels intentional. Like, maybe everyone with authority just knows to leave him alone, which would make him either someone very old or something very powerful, or honestly probably both. So SDW is definitely someone we'd like to know more about. But they're not the only one operating in a lane that nobody seems to be governing, because there's this whole alien subplot running throughout Season 2 that I feel like not enough people are talking about. So this whole alien subplot starts kind of innocuously in Episode 6, when Fionna and Huntress Wizard are dream hopping through people's dreams. They're chasing the Cosmic Owl, and they just briefly pass through LSP's dream, where he's being tickled on a lab table by Venusian aliens. And then, Episode 7 opens with a Venusian making direct contact with LSP and trying to deliver a message, and he covers his ears and babbles over it, going,
"If it's not for me, I don't want it! Get out of my head, Space Honey!" Wait.
And then there's the whole Fionna and Fennel Venus trip in Episode 6, which the show later sort of frames as a hallucination, except Fionna is still wearing the ring that a friendly Venusian gave her in the hallucination when she shows up at the Cosmic Court in Episode 8, so who knows?
Please. Allow me this intimacy.
Not guilty! I've seen like 5 episodes of Night Court. I got this.
And I genuinely don't know what to do with that detail, because either the show made a continuity error, I really doubt it, or the Venus trip was real and the show is just leaving it ambiguous for now, or there's some other special effect that we're not aware of yet. Then, in Episode 9, Fionna touches LSP's pain orb, and the muffled message from Episode 7 finally plays unobstructed through LSP to Fionna, meaning that it was always meant for her, and the Venusians could tell that she was going to look through LSP's mind.
Prepare your ear holes.
No!
Alice, tell them, go beyond the end of the peach.
Poor Alice.
The theory that makes the most sense to me for why they can reach LSP specifically is that as the gender-bent version of LSP, he could carry some version of the anti-elemental quality that LSP had, the secret fifth element that exists outside the normal rules, which might give him some kind of immunity to the magic-absorbing properties of Fionna World and make him the one person the Venusians can actually get a signal to. Either that or he's just always high out of his mind, and that maybe gives him some access to the telepathic communication. Either way, if one of these theories is right, the aliens have been working through the limitations of this universe to talk to the only person they possibly could, and that's LSP. And hey, having LSP as the only communication channel raises the question of what else they've been trying to communicate and how long they've been trying. And finally, the mystery that keeps me up the most despite having the least to actually say about it. So, Goal Betty is one where I genuinely don't have much to go on, and I want to be upfront about that, but it's been sitting in the back of my mind since the Season 1 finale, and Season 2 did absolutely nothing to help with that. The situation is that at the end of Season 1, after Goal Betty throws Simon back through the multiverse, she just dissolves into this new blue light, and that's it. So, is that the end of Goal Betty? I highly doubt it, but there's some kind of transition going on. And look, this next part is really just me going crazy with pattern matching, and it could mean absolutely nothing, so let me know what you think down below, but this blue light thing keeps nagging at me because the Catalyst comet approaching Fionna World is blue, right? And Finn's comet was blue, and Goal Betty dissolved into an eerily similar blue light, so it may be a connection to some other blue light, and this show has been deliberate enough about its color coding that we can't fully dismiss the idea that those things are connected somehow. Like, maybe whatever Goal Betty became after dissolving out there is doing something. Maybe it's connected to what's been nudging pieces into Fionna World from outside the system. Maybe it's the comet itself. Maybe Goal Betty is transferring to a different dimension or outside of the nothingness that it normally exists in. We genuinely don't know, and the show hasn't really given us anything concrete to build on. It's the thread that feels the most unfinished, but the most fun to tug on, and I feel the least equipped to theorize about it, so let me know what you think down below. I think either way, Season 3, if we ever get it, needs to come back to this specific mystery so that I can sleep well at night. But anyway, that is every unsolved mystery that we could find in Fionna and Cake so far, and honestly, putting this together just made me want Season 3 even more, which is probably not great for my mental health. Hey, if you enjoyed this video and you want more Adventure Time content, I actually did a full breakdown of every forgotten villain in the original series, which is linked right here or here. I would love to know which of these mysteries you're most interested in, and if there are any that I missed, so let me know down in the comments below. I want you to like and subscribe too, because hey, I don't wear these silly hats for nothing. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.